Part 1. Our story begins with a party. It's the year 400 and something BCE. King Ahasuerus of Persia is ruling over like a cajillion provinces from his palace in the capital of Shushan. Now, Ahasuerus is exactly the type of man who needs a lot of external validation because he's very insecure, so he throws a party that goes on for like 6 months. Extra doesn't even begin to cover it. He's just showing off, flexing his wealth and fancy home decor from all of his friends and yes men and sycophants to drool over. Ahasuerus had literally no self-control and gets totally shit-faced. He demands his queen, Vashti, show up at his party wearing her crown and maybe nothing else so that all of his bros can objectify her. Vashti was like, what the f is wrong with you? I'm not going to do that. You need an intervention and a lot of therapy. Sadly, feminism had not been invented yet. So Ahasuerus got real pissed off at his wife because she did not obey, and he thought he was losing face in front of all of his fabulous drinking buddies. He asked his bros what to do with this disobedient wife. His dude bro friends were like, oh, you gotta get rid of her. You gotta get rid of her because you gotta get a new queen. If you don't, all the women around the world will stop listening to their husbands. Ahasuerus was like, oh, okay, cool. And he sends out a men's rights flyer across the provinces telling men definitely don't listen to their wives, but definitely do listen to Joe Rogan. I believe that was mandatory. So yeah, the king's posse was like, okay, here's what you do next. You find all of the hot virgins, you take them to Shushan, and then you pick the new queen based on who you want to the most. In Shushan, there was a Jewish man named Mordechai. There was a young woman he lived with, probably his niece, or his wife, if you ask people in the Talmud. Her name was Hadassah, and she was indeed dope as and sure enough, she gets taken to the palace, right? Just like all the other women. And there she met up with her stylist, the eunuch Higai. He thought she had just what it takes to become America's Next Top Model. Now, Mordechai had told her not to tell anybody that she was Jewish, so she was undercover under the codename Esther. Every day, Mordechai would walk around outside the palace and try to find out how she was doing. Now, after a full 12 months of Glam Squad, each woman in turn was brought to the king at night. This isn't a good part. After that, they got put away in a different harem and they couldn't come out of there unless he summoned them by name. Now, Esther was a fan favorite in the palace. Everybody loved her. And she gets taken to the king, and he feels some type of way about her and decides that that is the new queen for him. But he was, as we've established, completely unable to have empathy for anybody else. He gave out gifts left, right, and center because he was so thrilled to have his new queen. But still, she didn't tell anybody that she was Jewish because Mordechai had told her to remain silenced. Stay tuned for part 2. As noted, Mordechai would often go and sit outside the king's gate to find out what he could about Esther, and while he was there, he overheard 2 servants planning to kill the king, which, understandable. Mordechai tells Esther, and Esther in turn tells the king in Mordechai's name. The 2 servants get executed. And this incident gets written down in the king's day planner, which he never reads. At this point, Ahasuerus promoted an absolute boy troll named Haman to be his advisor. All the king's servants would bow to Haman and be like, oh my god, Haman, we love you. But not Mordechai, because Haman wore a big idol on a chain around his neck, and Jews don't roll like that. Couldn't bow to him. It is vital to note at this juncture that Haman was indeed a petty, jealous bitch. So he's like, I'm so mad at this guy Mordechai that I want all the Jews to die. Let's kill them. Haman cast dice to figure out what day is best for a little genocide, and he picked the 13th of the month of Adar. So this creep-tastic Haman goes to Ahasuerus and says, oh, there's this group in the kingdom and they're different from all of us and they've got their own secrets and rules and stuff and they're really sketchy. Let's get rid of them. I'll even pay for it. And again, Ahasuerus being literally the worst, he was like, oh cool, have my signet ring, go nuts. Kill whoever you want. The decree gets issued to everybody in the provinces. They text it to everybody. It's on WhatsApp. And it looks like real bad news for the Jews. He signed off on a total massacre of everybody. So Mordechai found out about this and he was like, well, fuck. He tore his clothes and poured ashes on his head in mourning. The Jews were not doing great, let's just say. They were not doing well. So Esther sends a servant to go meet with Mordechai at the gate, and he explains the whole thing to the servant and how Haman is behind it, because let's face it, she was in the harem. They don't exactly let them have access to CNN. She didn't know what was going on. They don't let her on Twitter. And Mordechai was like, okay, it's time you reveal your secret identity. You have to announce that you are indeed Iron Man. You must intervene with the king. Esther was like, okay, to be clear, you're literally asking me to go to court without being invited, right? And if I do that, there's a very good chance I will be murdered by my husband, who I have been forced to marry, and who is a monster. Mordecai was like, well, don't think you're safe here. They're gonna kill you when they find out who you are. Maybe it was your destiny to save us, and that's why you became queen. That's like saying everything happens for a reason, which is literally the worst thing to say to someone who might be imminently murdered by an intimate partner. So Esther was like, fine. You know what? Fuck it. Let's do this. Get all the Jews together. We're gonna fast and we're gonna pray for 3 days because I'm gonna do this thing, even if I die trying. Stay tuned for part 3. The saga continues. Esther put on her hype playlist. She put on her baddest bitch outfit. She made the sharpest liner wing the world has ever seen. And she went to court. Luckily, it turned out the king had taken his Klonopin that day, so instead of flipping his shit and killing her, he extended his scepter to her and asked, what would you like? I will give you up to half my kingdom. Classic toxic male bullshit. Is he gonna murder me or give me half his kingdom? Who knows, depends on his mood. And she's like, well, actually, I'm here to invite you and Haman to a party. And they go to her party. The king asked her again, well, what did you really want? And she said, well, come back to a second party tomorrow and I'll tell you then. Haman was thrilled he was finally VIP, hanging out with the queen and stuff, but then he saw Mordecai at the gate giving him literally zero respect, and that soured his whole mood. And then he just went home and to his wife, Zeresh. So Zeresh was like, well, I have an idea. Why don't you just build like a gallows and get the king to sign off on hanging Mordecai? And Haman was like, yes, I love this idea for us. And he built it. So that night, the king has some insomnia, and none of his usual ASMR videos are helping, so he goes and he reads the most boring thing he can find, his day planner. And lo and behold, he discovers that it was Mordecai the whole time, who had saved him from those 2 servants who were going to kill him. And he's like, oh my god, I never even thanked him. I didn't get him a gift card or anything. So he summoned the first person in the palace lurking around who he could find to give him some advice, because I don't know if you've noticed this, but he's not a great independent thinker. Now, of course, because Haman is a lurker, that's exactly who we found. So the king asked him, okay, what is like a great gift for a really special somebody? Haman, truly, he thought it was him. So he said what he would want, which was to get dressed up in really fancy clothes and be paraded around Shushan on the fanciest of horses. Achashverosh is like, great thinking, I love it. You're gonna do exactly what you just said for Mordecai, that Jew who's always sitting at the gate. Haman had legit the worst day. So stressed out, and then he had to make it back in time to go to Esther's sequel party. We're at the party. And once again, the king asks Esther, what is it that she really wants? And she says, well, since you did ask, what I want is for myself and my people to not be murdered by the man who's planning on killing all of us. Achashverosh was like, who the would do that? And Esther said, well, funnily enough, that evil man is actually in this room right now. It's Haman. And Haman was like, oh, I have up. The king had to wrap his tiny mind around this new knowledge, and he goes outside to get some fresh air. So Haman runs over to Esther and invades her personal space to try to beg for his life. The king comes back into the room and sees this, and he's like, oh, you mother... Only one person is allowed to assault the queen, and it's me, you perv. One of the servants helpfully pointed out the gallows that had been built, and he had Haman killed there instead. That may have been a very fun and cathartic moment, but the Jews were still in danger. Stay tuned for the conclusion in part 4. Shalom friends, welcome back to Megillah Reactions, part 4, the conclusion. So finally, Esther told the king that Mordecai wasn't just some rando who hung out outside the palace all the time, he was actually her family. The king then gave his signet ring to Mordecai, he had previously given it to Haman, oops, and he also gave Mordecai all of Haman's stuff to sell on eBay or keep or whatever. Esther asked the king to stop the impending massacre of all the Jews that Haman had scheduled. Yeah, everybody had it down on their calendar. I'm so sorry, I can't make it to brunch on the 13th of Adar because we're actually going to go kill all the Jews that day. I am sorry. She drafts an edict, which the king signs, and the edict says, just FYI, the Jews are totally allowed to use lethal force if you attack them. Authorized to use any means necessary to defend themselves. They thought it was going to be Purge Day, but it became Reverse Purge Day. This was huge. The month of Adar rolls up. The Jews start arming themselves. This is the part of the movie where our heroes just suit up for the impending showdown, get all their weapons together, ready to go. Even the rulers of each province were suddenly like, oh no, we've always been Team Esther this whole time. We love the Jews. Don't kill us. The script had been so flipped. What ensues was indeed the climactic battle we were looking for. It was a bloodbath. The Jews emerged victorious. You could not air this on regular TV. This is like a HBO or Netflix situation. Also, why do people think this is a children's holiday? That's always been weird to me. Esther was triumphant, but she had entered her Dracarys phase, and she wasn't letting up then. She had all of Haman's 10 sons executed. That was truly some epic shit. A very clear message had been sent, and that message was, you guys with the wrong Jewish girl. And so, every year on Purim, we celebrate this amazing victory. We throw massive parties. We give each other gifts. We donate to charity. We eat cookies that occasionally can be great, but more often than not, taste exactly like sand. But most importantly is that we retell this story. So before we all get shit-faced this Purim, let us not forget that a young Jewish woman saved all of our asses from annihilation when no one else could. But nobody saved her. She still had to remain trapped in that forced marriage to that misogynistic pig. So let's raise a glass to Esther, our selfless and courageous hero, and simultaneously offer a big middle finger to the patriarchy in her honor. Queen Esther. What a legend.